Time to take you through the business news now, and our business editor Stephen Carroll is with me this morning. Hello to you, Stephen.
Hi, hello.
We're going to start off right here in France, where some doubts have been cast on the results of a government investigation into car makers cheating emissions tests.
This is according to the Financial Times. It says that the French government report, which was published last month, omitted details of anomalies in the testing of certain Renault cars. Now, the FT quotes 3 of the 17 members of the investigating panel as saying that a nitrous oxide filter in a Renault Captur model went into overdrive during testing, but not during normal driving conditions. Now, the members interviewed by the newspaper say this isn't evidence that emissions cheating devices like those that were at the centre of the Volkswagen scandal were being used, but they believe that further investigations should be carried out. Now, the Commission's report didn't find proof that defeat devices were being used in the 86 diesel cars that they examined, but said the possibility couldn't be ruled out. The Environment Ministry has denied that this latest information had been hidden in the report. Renault, for its part, says it's never cheated emissions tests and that its cars conform to standards in each market they're sold. We're waiting for their response to this latest development.
Okay, well, staying in France then, Stephen, more signs that the tourism industry here is having a bad summer.
Hotels in Paris are seeing a drop of up to 10% on their usual numbers for this time of year. France is still the #1 destination in the world for tourists, but more visitors have been staying away after the terror attacks that have struck the country over the past 2 years. It's a key sector of the French economy as well, worth around 7% of GDP. Emerald Maxwell has the story.
Paris. Last year it fired the imagination of 47 million tourists. But this year they seem to have given it the cold shoulder.
There was very less people. So I asked my husband, I was like, what's going on? You know, when we came here in 2012, there was so many people.
You know, I'm a tourist. I want the empty streets for the picture. So Montmartre is beautiful like this.
The steps in front of the Sacré-Cœur are usually packed with people at this time of year. But fear of attacks has put off some visitors.
I was thinking about, as I was traveling in the tube, what if somebody planted a bomb?
The damage has been felt across all sectors. At Renoir's former studio in the heart of Montmartre, now a museum, they've never seen a downturn like it.
We've seen an 11% drop in tourists from Europe, and overall a 15% drop in foreign tourists for the summer months.
The famous Champs-Élysées is usually a hive of tourists from around the world. This newspaper and souvenir vendor is feeling their absence.
We work with hotels, and some of them are ordering far fewer newspapers than before, that's for sure.
Hotels reported a 10% fall in foreign tourists in July, with the luxury sector most feeling the pinch.
On one hand, we've had a drop in reservations. On the other, there were lots of cancellations after the tragic events in Nice in July.
But it's not just attacks scaring people away. Brexit and repeated French industrial strikes have also left their mark on tourism this summer.
Tourism is also an important industry in Britain, where industry experts say the sector will hold up well this year, despite the country's vote to leave the European Union. The World Travel and Tourism Council is predicting growth of 3% in tourism for the UK this year. It says that lower domestic spending will be offset by an increased number of international visitors taking advantage of weaker sterling. But the council has warned the industry will support fewer jobs over the next 4 years as a result of Brexit.
What's happening on the markets today, Stephen?
Oil prices have taken a tumble in trading on Monday, and that fall continuing on the markets today. The Brent crude index down around 1% a short time ago. WTI crude in the United States also seeing a fall, so oil prices well below that $50 a barrel limit that it had, or rather bar that it had passed last year. This is hopes fade that oil producers will agree to limit supply levels in the midst of the glut in the oil market. On the stock markets, the summer lull really continuing in Asia. Pretty minor movements across the main markets. Just the Nikkei in Tokyo there finishing down by 0.6%. Some more of the day's business headlines for you now. The president of ride-sharing company Lyft says the firm is not seeking a buyer. John Zimmer told Business Insider that recent reports had mischaracterised a situation where the company was being approached with takeover offers. He declined to comment on any specific talks it was holding, but previous reports had suggested Lyft had been holding discussions with companies including General Motors and its main rival, Uber. Pilots at the French airline Aigle Azur have called a week-long strike to start on Saturday. It's the second walkout by pilots at the airline this summer in a dispute over pay and working conditions. During the last strike at the end of July, some 150 flights had to be changed or cancelled. And the basketball star Kobe Bryant is turning his hand to investing. He launched his $100 million venture capital fund on Monday. It's a joint venture with the entrepreneur Jeff Stiebel. The firm will seek to invest in technology, media and data companies.
Well, to Macau next, where the most expensive casino has just set its roulette wheel spinning.
The American tycoon Steve Wynn is behind the $4 billion mega resort in the Chinese gambling enclave. The venture's a major gamble, though, as it comes after more than 2 years of slumping revenues for Macau's casinos. Alexander Alcott reports.
The Wynn Palace, Macau's newest and most expensive mega resort, complete with a central casino, shops, restaurants, dancing fountains and cable cars. The €3.7 billion venture is a throw of the dice for US billionaire Steve Wynn, as he bets on a turnaround on the island's losing streak. Macau is the only Chinese territory where gambling is legal, and development on the former Portuguese colony was explosive. By the end of 2013, its gambling revenues were 7 times larger than those in Las Vegas. But they've since nosedived, falling for 26 months straight. Although Steve Wynn borrowed a line from the Chinese president, saying revenues are just moving to a new normal.
What took place here in previous years was an anomaly. The amount of revenue, the rate of growth was unprecedented, historic, and in many cases, not just extraordinary, but outrageous.
Macau's economy is almost entirely dependent on its casinos, but 2 factors have hit the island hard. Firstly, the slowdown in China's economy has cut the number of visitors from the mainland. And secondly, Xi Jinping's anti-corruption crackdown has slashed the number of so-called VIP gamblers, who've often been made up of high-rolling corrupt government officials or executives at state-owned companies. As gambling revenues have fallen, the Macau authorities are trying to develop more non-gambling attractions to lure middle-class families for more sustainable growth.
And finally, Stephen, we may have passed a peak in the popularity of Pokemon Go.
Hard to believe the mobile game has been a phenomenon, topping download charts and breaking records since its launch last month. It also sent Nintendo's share price soaring, at one stage adding more than $7 billion to the company's value. But data from Axiom Capital Management has shown the number of users playing the game and the time they're spending on the app has passed its peak. The number of daily active users for Pokemon Go is now hovering at around 30 million, down from almost 45 million just a couple of weeks ago. Everyone thinks it's Pikachu'd.
Pikachu, gosh. Thanks for that. Stephen Carroll, France 24's business editor there.